Chad, welcome to Tales of Leadership, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing so good. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege, and I always say this every time that I have someone on the podcast, but I genuinely mean it. I love talking about leadership, and the best part of my day is kind of like winding down and getting to talk about something that I'm passionate about.
Amen. I'm here for it.
So, kind of just setting the stage, providing an overview for our listeners. Who is Chad Brown?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a lot of things. The things that come to mind right off the bat is that I'm a husband to a beautiful woman named Katie. We've been married. Next year we'll be married 20 years.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Thank you. We have 3 beautiful children. I got a girl, boy. So Addison, Kenya, and Milo. And Addison is turning 17 in a couple of weeks. Milo will be turning 10, and Kenya will be turning 13. So we've got a couple of birthdays. We got 3 birthdays coming up, and that's who I am at my core. That's why I do everything that I do. Is my family. I love my family dearly. I work to spend time with them and all of the, honestly, all the leadership stuff that I do as well. Really helps me, obviously, to just be with them in a really meaningful way. And I know that's going to be my legacy. So when people ask me who I am, that's what I think of first. Secondarily, I'm a leadership coach and consultant. What that means is I get to work with CEOs, company founders day in and day out in the most crucial conversations that relate to their businesses and their teams. We get to dive into the conversations that most people don't want to have, but actually create results. And we do that through a couple of different ways. I get to be one-to-one with them on a regular basis. And we also do a lot of offsite work. So we get to be with them for a couple days at a time, a whole team, and dig in that way. We also do a few public trainings as well a year, about 4 or 5 public trainings a year. We can talk a little bit about those later too. But that's really who I am. I also love to be outdoors. Any moment that I get, I'm in the woods, I'm up in the mountains, I'm on the ski slopes, I'm paddling a paddle board, doing some rock climbing, whatever I can do to just get outside and breathe some fresh air, get some meditative exercise in.
I love that. The Army's ruined me when it comes to outdoor activities. I used to love to go camping and do all of that stuff until the Army sent me, and then I would sleep in literally a swamp. I remember Ranger School. I was up to my chest, and it was like 60-degree, just water. I call it pudding mud. It wasn't even water. It was like literally like chocolate pudding. And I'm like, I'm never going camping again because the Army just ruined it.
Not on my own fruition, right?
I love that. And you said something that I kind of just want to go back to before we even start, and it's the leadership is kind of legacy. And I see that, especially nowadays, of individuals with a transitional mindset in leadership. They'll take over a role, and they only ever view that position in the time frame that they have it, and they make the decisions based on in their time and not beyond it. And I love how you define legacy is, hey, your legacy is your children, and the same way. And I resonate with that is that how my children are molded and who they become defines if I'm successful or not. And then you can use that in 2 different realms. You could use that for your employees, the team members that you build and groom, the leaders they become, or your children, the leaders that they become. So that was already an amazing point. And I wanted to make sure it's sticky.
One thing that I always work with my clients as soon as we start talking together, working together, is most business owners, most leaders inside a business think that they're leading a business. Their job is to produce a product that more profitably or better, a better service or whatever it is they think that their mission is. And I tell them that's actually not your mission. Your mission is to develop people. If you choose to take it, like if you want to play the big game, like if you want to play the game that really matters, you're in a position, your product and your business gives you the opportunity to develop human beings. And if you want to be that kind of leader, then we're going to get along.
Yeah. The Army has a saying, people first, mission always. And at the end of the day, we're only successful. You, me, we are only successful if the individuals that are working for us truly buy in to the vision and then put their hands and toil in the soil. And if they don't do that and they aren't fully committed to it, the results will show. And
Yeah.
that's something that I've seen so often in the military. I would love to kind of take it. So first of all, I love having coaches on because, I'm a coach too, but we always have like a different aspect. And you're an entrepreneurial coach, which I absolutely love. And the Army's fully embraced this. So the Army just recently launched a program. It's called the Army Coaching Program, of where they're training junior and senior military leadership to kind of foster this kind of culture within organizations. And kind of just starting there
Great.
is, how would you define leadership? Because I love hearing people's definitions of it.
Yeah, my definition of leadership is really simple. It's creating results through other people.
Mm,
And, all of the conversations that I have over and over again is all results based. What are the results? What are the results? We got to look at the results to know if we're effective, to know if we're doing our work, to know if we're actually committed to the vision. We have to look at the results. And if we're causing the results through other people, then we're leading them towards. I love talking to guys like you, military guys, because there's so much crossover in the language.
yeah.
And no, more than just crossover language, lots of people talk about vision, lots of people talk about mission, blah 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 blah. It's just like really good catchy phrase stuff. You guys really own it, embody it, and that's what I love about having a conversation with you and the other people that that are military based that I've been able to have, because you understand. I mean, the stakes are so high for you, and much higher than not yielding a profit in quarter three. But that embodiment is really what we invite our clients into, because we think the stakes are really high as well. If you actually believe you're developing human beings and you can create results through them by doing that, then the stakes are high. Because I don't know about you. I mean, the leaders that in my life that really invested in me, really saw me and wanted to create results through me, in like a powerful, meaningful way, were willing to give me tough feedback, but were willing to cheer me on. I remember every single one of them. I have their voices in my head every single time something becomes a struggle. And that's really what we're encouraging our clients to do in the realm of leadership.
Dude, I love that. And I had General Petraeus on not too long ago, and he really summed up the whole idea of a learning model of how to embrace vision within an organization. And he did it through the lens of strategic level leadership. So, and to your point, and it's so true, how we create buy-in determines our results of how we do the work. But from my perspective, how we do the work is literally life or death. So we have to create such a deep level of buy-in within our formations and organizations. And to me, what I've always learned that separated like great leaders is their ability to connect authentically and vulnerably with individuals. And I think that is what is missing most time, because my base leadership style is meekness. And if you ever heard that, you were probably like combat, veteran with tattoos everywhere, deployments, combat. But meekness isn't weakness in my mindset. It's listening, being authentic, being vulnerable. And then when you've heard everything and everyone has had an opportunity to kind of provide feedback, you act decisively and you kind of move forward. And that type of leadership philosophy has always worked. But he brought the idea out of creating the big idea, getting the idea right, and then moving into communicating that, creating alignment, head, heart, hand, getting the hand started. And then the milestones of along the way, having those KPIs, if you want to use that term or whatever, and then refining it and then continuing that loop. So the first place I would love to really dig into your leadership style or leadership journey is, where did that start for you?
Yeah, I mean, it started early on, but really I think all of us are learning constantly of what leadership is and isn't, from early on, from our parents to our school teachers to, even ourselves. How do we show up? Where do we chicken out? When do we show up? All of that sort of stuff. We're starting to discover what works and what doesn't work in the realm of leadership. For me, the real concrete journey of where I am today, actually coaching these people, is in 2007, I started a real estate investment company where I paired up investors with new build properties. And we're going to build all the properties. The investors put up the money, and we're going to go out and build them real fast and then sell them for a lot of profit and split the profit with the investors. But the problem is that we started building most of these properties late 2007, early 2008.
Oh no. Yeah.
And, we went out with a bang because I was ready to make a lot of money. And that was my main aim. That was my main vision, was to make some money. And everybody knows where this story is going that's listening. Late 2008, early 2009, the market crashes. We lose everything. We're sitting on that many properties, over leveraged and undereducated, and we lose it all. And that was probably, that was the most depressive time of my life. I was so depressed, man. I was beating myself. Beating myself bloody. And, luckily I had enough wits about me to really learn some lessons. And the lesson that I came away, the major lesson I came away from that with was, I'm never going to do anything just for money again. Whatever I'm committing my time to and my focus, I must believe that it's making a difference in the world.
I love
that.
A
difference that I want to make and that I'm committed to and that I can measure, that I can be involved in. And so at that moment, I remembered that I loved making film. I loved video work. I did it in high school, never really considered it as a career. So I decided to do it. And I started a video production company, moved down to Southern California with my wife and 2 kids at the time, little teeny tiny babies. We loaded our Scion XB up with as many things as we could get in there. And if you know anything about those cars, they're like little refrigerator cars. There's no room at all, especially when you get 2 car seats in them. And we drove down with very little money in the bank and a hope and a dream and a vision to make a difference. And very quickly partnered up with somebody else who was doing something similar that I could learn a lot from. And we grew really quick. Within 2 or 3 years, we were doing big production projects for brands like Volkswagen, Pixar Animation Studios, Target. And as we grew so fast, I thought, once again, we already talked about this, but I thought we were in the film business. I thought what we were doing in the world was making videos. And I missed horribly this idea that we were actually leading people or developing human beings. And we were terrible leaders, man. It was terrible to work for us. We were traveling 290 days out of the year, running people into the ground, expecting them to invest everything that they've got into this thing and not giving them anything back as far as humanness, just a paycheck, and our turnover was high. Our product was suffering. And my partner and I looked at each other and we're like, what is going on? Like, we do not know how to do this. Because yes, on paper and on social media, we looked successful, extremely profitable, speaking from stages, all of that sort of stuff. And we were miserable, miserable. And the people that worked for us were miserable. So we said, this isn't working. If we can't figure this out in the next 6 months, we're going to walk away, close the doors, walk away. Because really what hit me the hardest is I realized one night that I was not proud of the dad that I was.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't proud of the husband that I was. And I didn't see how it was going to change. And it scared the shit out of me. And so we decided 6 months. 6 months is what we got. And almost at the exact same time, I got connected with a guy by the name of Adrian Kaler, who called himself a business coach. I didn't even know business coaching was a thing. Like, I didn't, it was just like, what's this? Okay, great. He wants to talk to me. He thinks he's got some answers. Great. Let's go. And I thought he was going to help us, manage our time better and do all of those things that we think is the problem. And what he did is he invited me to completely transform the way that I saw life. and the way that I saw myself and my commitment. And, I tell this story often. One of the first calls that I had with him, he said, he's just regular. What's not working, guys? Tell me, bring me up to speed. And I said, I'm a family man, and I really want a lot of time. I want quality time with my family, and we just haven't been able to create that in this business. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, "You're lying." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm lying?" He's like, "You're not a family man." I was offended. Wow. I was taken back. I was pissed off, and at least luckily I hung in long enough for him to explain it. But he said, if you wanted it, you would have it. If you were committed to it, it would be so.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most powerful things anybody has ever said to me. He believed in me enough not to believe me. It was a lie. It was a lie. I was committed to my business way more than I was committed to my family.
Yeah.
Anyway, over the next four-ish years, he really helped me develop a life that I was really proud of. That business, I ended up buying that partner out of that business. It no longer worked for either of us. So I got to buy him out of it, and then ultimately built that business to a place where it kind of ran autonomously without much of my attention, all through his help. And all of a sudden I had all this time on my hands and all of this, opportunity to like dream again. And I was thinking, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to do to make a difference once again? And I knew it almost instantly that I wanted to do what Adrian had done for us. And that was to help other business owners, entrepreneurs find their way in leadership in a way that is meaningful. And so started working with him. And we work to this day. We still work together in this capacity. He's the founder of our firm. And I get to work side by side with him every single day.
Man, there's so much there, Chad, to unpack. Like, I love that. Is that to me, it's inspiring. Is someone moves their family on a hope and a dream, and is able to create a successful business, at least, initially. And then I always come up with the concept of grit. Like what makes a resilient leader? And I'm going through a leadership coaching program right now, but like grit, and you'll learn this about military people, is that we can turn any word into an acronym.
Of course.
Yeah. But it takes four things: guts, a resilient spirit, integrity, and then tenacity to actually go do it. And to me, that is just inspiring, is that you moved your family across country with an unwillingness, which I believe is part of like a purposeful, accountable leader, a transformational leader, that you were going to be successful. But when you were successful, and this is so true, and I want to make sure that this is clear with people, you got lost in the goal versus the growth, if that makes sense. You were focused on growing your business, and you basically got like tunnel vision in the forest. It's easy when you're in the trees to lose where you're at, because everything is just disorienting. And when you start a company and you're leading people, you can forget that you actually have people on your team, and you got individuals who have children, you have individuals who have issues, health issues, and you have to learn to lead the whole person to get those results. But then you also realized, hey, that life was not sustainable for who Chad wanted to be. And then you found a coach, and I always call him like an accountability tree, someone who's deeply rooted, who does not want to hear your BS, but will show you or mentor you or guide you, be a shepherd on another way of doing it. Yeah. And that's amazing. But I would kind of want to dig back into, you moving across country, kind of in that mindset. Walk me through that. Like, how did you have that unreasonableness, or maybe a better word is confidence, is that, hey, this is a passion of mine and I want to go pursue it?
Yeah. It's interesting, man. I think about that a lot, because as you get, at least my experience, I think people can relate to this, is as you get older and more established and settled in, to think about doing something like that is like, holy cow, I can't believe I did that.
I love it.
But honestly, you've probably, Josh, been in positions in your life where you had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like. It felt like it already lost. So what the hell?
Yeah.
And there is a interesting phenomenon of confidence that happens in a soul when there's nothing to lose. And that's what I was experiencing, man. I knew that I was going to go out fighting no matter what. I didn't know what it was going to take, which we never do. When we enter in, when we take a jump, when we stake a claim, we don't know what it's going to take.
Yeah.
We're just saying, I'm in, I'm committed, no matter what, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And that's truly what it was. And it's interesting for me to trace back now, that losing everything was both a gift and maybe a little bit of a curse through that process, because through that loss, in this new venture, building this business, I was determined that I was never going to be in that space again, ever. And to me, that was a financial space. And so I disregarded all of my other responsibilities to make sure that we would never be in that financial space again. And that's where I missed the mark, because, like you said, life is complex.
Yeah.
We are holistic human beings, and there's so much for us to pay attention to. And if we're unwilling to see what's in front of us, or if we're unwilling to see what's needed and wanted at the time, we can get very lopsided.
It's funny, kind of, hearing you walk through your story. I would say your spark to me is the moment of realization of the miracle of coaching. When I was kind of going through International Coaching Federation certification program, there is a aha moment almost with every kind of like coaching session, in a way of that. How have I never thought of that before? And it's usually like another acronym, KISS. I think we've all heard that one. Keep it simple, stupid. That's the motto of my life, because I am an infantry officer. So all the stereotypes, right? But it's so true, is that you found someone that could kind of help you, guide you in a way of being a shepherd, and put you on this path. But that's another thing too, is that I want to kind of dig in before you found the coach. And I had a mentor tell me this: in the military, it's even more demanding to kind of frame this in a perspective of controlling your time. When I was a company commander, my first company command, I would be at work at 5:30 in the morning to run a 5:45 meeting, essentially a sync before the sync. That's what we called it. And then we had a 6 o'clock formation, and then we would go do PT at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And then I usually wouldn't get home until 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. And, that's a demanding schedule. But the boss kind of told me one day, is like, hey, Josh, like, how you spend your time shows me your priorities.
Sure.
And it never dawned on me that, hey, I am a holistic person. I'm a father, I'm a husband, all of these labels, everything, Chad, that you said up front. And it didn't really dawn on me until I was getting my master's degree, and I had time to reflect on how can I truly live, and have harmony between work, family, and self. How can I do that? And to me, I discovered it on my own. But I love how you were able to find a resource or a coach to kind of walk through that. But how was that challenging up front, knowing that, hey, you can have harmony in your life?
I love that you use the term harmony and not the term balance.
Yes.
My version of that is integration. I teach, preach, and practice life integration. I don't believe we have compartments of our lives where, work or home life or friends or hobby. The compartments are the stressor, I believe. And for me, it's interesting. I just had blinders on.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to say it, is that I was solely focused on one thing. I heard a quote the other day that I really loved, and it really I just think it's such a great way to look at this, is that show me your bank account and your calendar last year, and I'll tell you what you prioritize, or I'll show you what you care about. If you were to look at my bank account, my calendar at that time, it was all work. It was all work. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where I was missing birthdays and anniversaries and momentous events and school events without even a second thought. And I was couching it in the like in the light of like, I'm doing this for you. Can't you see I'm doing this for you?
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, part of it is I wanted success. Part of it was I wanted to make money for my family. Sure, that was there. But ultimately, man, I was high on the success. I was high on the
dopamine kick,
winning the client. I was high on the big paycheck. I was high on the speaking from the stages and the attention and the all of that. And it was intoxicating. It was an addiction. And I couldn't see the damage, just like any other addict. I couldn't see the damage I was doing in other areas of my life, because all that mattered was the addiction.
There's a podcast I was listening to this morning. I can't remember what it was, but it talked about like the achievement trap. Is individuals, and I'm assuming you have the same kind of personality as me, is we get addicted to achievement in a way, is that we are always chasing that. But there's a term, it's probably overused, but it's true. It was a hedonic treadmill, is that we assume when we get to that point, or we make that amount of money, or we get that job, or we buy that new toy, we're going to feel fulfillment. Yeah, we're going to be happy. But then when that moment comes, we don't feel anything. We're leading up to that point is the dopamine in our body that is fueling us to be excited and energetic and enthusiastic. But as soon as that moment happens, you don't have any real sense of fulfillment. Now you're looking again and again and again and again. And it just goes to a gold. That's fire, Chad. Absolute fire.
I get a behind the scenes look at this every single day. And I'm so grateful that I get this reminder for myself, which is I get to work with really successful, hard driving entrepreneurs. They have success, they have money, that some of them have popularity. And the number one thing that they say to me when we get on one of our first calls is that they are bored.
Yeah. That's insane. Wow.
And it's so eye-opening because they're miserable. There is despair in their success. And so it's a beautiful process, right? We get to work together to actually start adding some meaning back into the life, but it doesn't have anything to do with the bottom line. It doesn't have anything to do with the profitability, the next product, none of that. And that's, to watch somebody go through that process, and having been through it myself of, oh, geez. And look, man, I still get lost in it. It'd be ridiculous for me to pretend like there aren't times in my life where I'm like, oh man, if I just had a little bit of money, or if I just had that trip or that thing, man, I would be so happy. And I catch myself, I practice recognizing that in myself, because recognizing in myself is so crucial to being able to recognize it in my clients and the people that I work with. But vision, man, vision and aim and working towards it is the only thing that is fulfilling to a hard driving human being individual. The challenge and the struggle that's it. That's the only thing that's going to create meaning.
There's a beautiful analogy kind of tying this to the Army is when you go to the range and you fire your weapon. Well, there's the area effects and then point effects. Point effects essentially like an individual weapon that you're looking through a single shot to take down a target, and then and the area weapon is like a machine gun of where you're just scattering and suppressing.
Yeah.
When you fire your rifle, if you don't have a clear sight picture at looking down the barrel, you're never going to hit your target. It's going to look like you're working to the outside, but like that dude's a Banff, he's doing everything right.
Yeah.
But the individuals who know you and in yourself, you know that you're not hitting down any targets. You're just toiling through the day. And it kind of goes back to what I love already identify a theme in this podcast is legacy, defining legacy. Who do you want to be at the end of the day? Who are you growing into? So walk me through, what are the secrets of becoming a world-class leader?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, we start with the human level. Whenever I'm working with somebody and they're dissatisfied in their business for whatever reason, typically my clients find me in the intersection of really successful business, very successful product or service, terrible leadership. Their people, they've got high turnover, or they're disconnected from their people, or, all of that sort of stuff. And the team can't support the demand. And they're starting to notice that it's the disconnection on the team is starting to affect their ability to deliver what it is they've promised to deliver to the world in product or service. And that's never a systematic problem. That's always a human problem. And so the greatest leaders can recognize that if human connection is number one, everything else will take care of itself.
Yep.
If we can see the person, if we can see their personal vested interest, I use a principle called PVI, personal vested interest.
I love that.
If their personal vested interest can align with the mission and vision of the company, then everything will work out fine. But in order for you to know if they align or not, you have to know what it is. Most leaders that I start working with don't even know why their people get up in the morning.
Yeah.
What drives them? What do they dream about? What do they care about? What do they think about? What's the first thought that comes in their mind when they wake up? What's the last thought that enters their mind before they fall asleep? All of that stuff is an indication for people's personal vested interest. And if you can't create alignment between that and the vision of your company, well, then you're going to burn people out. They just got a job, and they're not going to take risk with you. They're not going to, as you talked about being vulnerable. Why be vulnerable in a place that doesn't have interest in what you want? So that's where we start. What is the humanness that you are missing? And so much of that, honestly, man. So much of why leaders miss the humanness is because their own self-protection. They're so scared of being seen.
Would you say they're scared of being seen because they have an imposter syndrome?
Sure. Yeah. They make up all this shit that they're supposed to be for their people.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. It's not human themselves. That's why they don't want to see the humanness of other people. They feel like they've got to put on something that isn't even human. And that creates the disconnection. You know what it's like to try to work with somebody or have a conversation with somebody who isn't willing to reveal that they're human, to talk about their mistakes or their missteps or their fears or their greatest dreams and visions. And that's ultimately my opinion. Nobody has to believe anything I'm saying. I'm not saying I know this to be true. I'm saying this is what I've found, and this is what I practice with my clients. And when they can get in touch with that, it's clear, and then that opens up conversations that they've been unwilling to have. That feel like risky, really risky conversations. And that's the action that comes from recognizing and being willing to be seen. So pretty much, within the first little while, the clients that I'm working with, they're starting to have these conversations that they've been unwilling to have for decades sometimes.
There's so much there. To hire the right people, I'll call it H talk. To hire the right people, train and observe and coach them, you have to know And I love how you wrote the PVI, personal invested interest. You have to understand what the values you want replicated or emulated,
Yes.
priorities, beliefs. And I come down to the rule of mirrors. It's kind of one of the rules that I have within leadership is whatever you say and do will be replicated within your organization and your team. Is that the
100%.
leader is the mirror, and then I also love how you talked about the concept of so I see there's two paths that a leader can take, and eventually we'll choose which one we want to go down. You'll be a toxic leader that controls information. They're entitled. They use all of their authority. They don't want to show weakness. They have a false image. They're very top down, very authoritarian in a way. Or you can be a transformational leader and you can have that servant mindset and literally flip the hierarchy where you're on the bottom and you're serving everyone else. But I think in order to do that, you have to be able to connect, authentically, and you have to be able to know who you are. And it goes to like the first phase of leadership that I think we all agree upon is that leading yourself, self leadership.
100%.
Can't lead an organization if you don't know who the heck you are, and you can't lead your family if you don't know who the heck you are, and you don't know what's important to you. And that's the whole core culture of building a resilient team is starting at the top. It starts with you. It starts with that leader. It starts with the visionary and then everyone else kind of working. That the
So
next
good.
question, the next
Yeah, I
question.
just can I
Go
add to
ahead.
that really quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the one of the things that I talk about with my clients all the time is it starts with you.
Yeah.
It starts with you. What's your contribution? And I don't mean like the vision or the action starts with you. I mean, whenever there's a breakdown, you got to recognize and own your contribution to the breakdown and own it with your team first.
Yep.
If you want anybody to do anything productive with the breakdown. So that's where we start first. Anytime they've got a complaint about an employee or the team or the product or whatever, my first question, it's so annoying to them. They hate it.
I love it.
But my first question is, how did you contribute to this breakdown? And then my second question is, does your team know that? And if you don't know how you contribute to it and your team doesn't know it, then you're just putting on a facade. And every world-class leader, from my perspective, every world-class leader owns their contribution.
Yeah.
Consistently.
I love that. How did you contribute to that? And then does your team know it? So there's a concept in the Army that I think we use universally. There's two. There's a hot washer and AAR, after action review. And after everything, good, bad, or ugly, if it's more ugly, then it's a hot wash because there's nothing to review. Just
Sure.
hey, but what did we do? Or what was supposed to happen starting off there? Okay. Whatever mission you're supposed to go on. What did we do? And review is what were the key lessons and how can we improve next time? And I always go to the rule of 3 because I think more than that, then you're not really improving. You're trying to chase unattainium.
Yeah.
What are the 3 things that we can take from this experience and implement next time to become better?
I love it, man. I have a very similar structure that I use both in my team, in my marriage, with my kids, and with my clients. And I call it's the feedback structure. So it's what worked, what didn't work, what's wanted and needed.
Oh, I love it.
What worked, what didn't work, what's wanted and needed. It's all neutral. When we have a breakdown, we can come to the table. We can neutralize it all just by getting together and asking, all right, what worked, what didn't work, what's wanted and needed.
That's so good, man. And it's funny you said this up front, but the similarities between the civilian world and the military world, it's just words. It's just different ways of saying it, but the fundamentals, the science of it's there. So, moving to the next question is how do you get people, and I think you covered this, to really care for a business as much as you? So you started this. How do you create that buy-in?
Yeah. First off, I say don't expect them to care about it as much as you do.
Yep.
They shouldn't. It's not theirs. But the closest I believe we can get is somebody who sees how being here on this team contributes to what it is that they want in life. What is it that I ultimately want? What is it that I ultimately care about? And if my work with my team in the business actually contributes to that, supports it, champions it, is a way maker for it, then I'm in 1,000%.
I love Waymaker. I love that, brother. There's Galatians 6:9. I love this quote, but I pulled it up because it kind of resonated with that. Let us not become wary of doing good, for that we will reap a harvest at the proper time if we do not give up.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it kind of really just sums that up just beautifully. So kind of, and I know we talked about that before, but I really want to dig into kind of like the coaching services that you provide, but probably more importantly, what are some of the top trends that you see with your clients, the leaders that you're coaching right now? What are the top 3 trends?
Yeah, it's a great question. Are you talking about when they find me?
Yeah, when they find you,
like the top trending problems that we combat?
Yeah.
The first one is that most founders, company founders, CEOs, they don't want to be leaders.
I love it.
They didn't do this to become a leader of people or humans.
Yeah.
When they had their brilliant idea, all they saw was an opportunity to send out to the world something they created, and it could possibly make some money, and or maybe that was one of their major goals, is that they knew it would make a lot of money, and that it could be a vehicle for other things that they want, whether that's travel or things or relationships or whatever. Very few create something meaningful with that, with like, I'm gonna now go, if this thing takes off, I'm going to be a developer of humans.
Wow.
That's just not even on their radar. So what happens is they find themselves neck deep in this thing, and it is successful, and now they are.
Yeah.
And that's the whole game, right? Because if they lead these people well, this thing succeeds. If they don't lead these people well, it's dead in the water.
Yep.
So I would say that's the first and most common trend that I see. Other ones are, they're bored. They put so much weight on success. They put so much weight on growing this thing to a certain place, and then they get there and they feel nothing. Or maybe it's like celebratory for a moment and then nothing. And they can't figure out why it didn't do the thing that they've always promised themselves that it would.
Wow.
Another interesting, I find myself with a lot of interesting, another interesting intersection that I find myself in with a lot of clients is actually after the sale of a business. And they sell the business and they're trying to figure out what's next. And there's so much doubt in that, especially if they've only sold one business, because they're now thinking to themselves, was it a fluke? Was it luck? Could I do it again? Do I want to do it again? Do I want to pay the price that I had to pay to grow that thing to be that what it became? Do I want to make those sacrifices again?
Yeah.
And it's a very lonely place to be.
I can resonate with that last one, just from the standpoint of the military lens, and especially from officers. So, I've been in for 16 years. I've never been in a leadership role for longer than a year. I always move. Case in point, I'm getting ready to move again in June to Virginia, but I've never been in a leadership role for more than a year. And, that's draining, to pick up and move to a new team, establish those relationships, and pick up the vision and start getting results and doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. Some people thrive in that, but some people, that can wear you down. And I can see a similarity there of like, hey, creating this new startup company, selling that startup company, doing another company, and having to know what it takes to be successful. You know what it takes.
Yep.
But are you willing to put in the work to achieve that success, or maybe even go beyond it? Because now you know what works and the amount of work. And that's the beauty about leadership. The higher you rise, yes, you gain more authority, you gain more title, you gain more money, but your responsibilities grow equally as much. And a lot of people aren't willing to make that sacrifice. I love that last key takeaway.
Yeah, man. I mean, you talk about that in the realm of military. We see it all the time in the realm of business when good performers get promoted to leadership. Just because you're an excellent mechanic, does not mean you're going to be an excellent leader. But it's 100%. The next natural step, right? I mean, you can only go so far as the mechanic. And then if you want to continue to take on more responsibility, make more money, make a bigger impact in the company, the next step is to then lead people. And that's the other junction where so many leaders find us, is like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what it was going to be like to go from, or the founder or CEO saying, I had this amazing performer. He produced so well for us. And then we put him in leadership and the results are less than desirable.
Yeah.
And that kind of transition is not something to take lightly. There needs to be support in that transition. I'm not saying people shouldn't transition good performers into leadership, but there needs to be more attention to how do we create results with other people. Yeah. It's so much different than just going out and, creating the results yourself.
So I have, and I journaled on this, I call it leadership intelligence, and understanding where you fall within that. So tactical, operational, strategical, and everything I do is through the lens of the military, because that's how I was raised as a leader. But tactical are the soldiers that are in the trenches doing the work. Operational are the leaders that are developing the plans and seeing those plans implemented. Strategic level leadership is the ones who's creating those big ideas or top level ideas, and then they're giving them to the operational leaders to actually implement.
Yeah.
Well, with leadership, it's the same way. You may be a phenomenal rock star at what you do, but then you get a leadership role. But when you take over that leadership role, you fall through the cracks because you were promoted early. And it takes time to groom someone to take over a team. And I think a lot of times in the military, they do a phenomenal job, but that's because the stakes are very high. At least, when I was in the infantry before I transitioned to acquisitions, we focused a lot of our time on developing people. And to me, that's why the military is so beautiful, is that we grow our leaders from within. And one difference from us versus, other militaries across the world, what makes us so successful is one thing, and it's our NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, and they start from individual privates and then they get built up that way. But it's the backbone of our organization. That is what makes our country great, truly, from a military perspective. And at the end of the day, all it is leaders at the lowest level being able to make decisions quickly and rapidly. And we call it mission command, sharing that authority to allow you to kind of achieve results. And then if you don't have that kind of mindset, or you don't develop that type of culture, and you start just promoting people based on performance, then they get there. And to me, I think that's what sets up the stage for being a toxic leader, because you don't know what leadership is.
Yeah. What an insecure experience, right? Like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I'm expected. Look, all eyes are on me. I better put on this facade. I better put on this veneer. And they have a contribution to that, but whoever brought them into that situation also has a major contribution. And you mentioned culture, man. And this is one thing that we stress, is you create a culture of leadership.
Yeah.
And that means even your performers, even those who are, I don't love talking in hierarchy, but it works for our understanding and conversation. So even those who are bottom of the totem pole, entry level. You'll be amazed if you create a culture of leadership where even those people are being taught how to lead others in the culture. It will astonish you what you can bring up in the ranks.
Yeah.
From even that entry level. It's incredible. And they will be more loyal. They will be more, they'll be adapted to your culture in a way that they can lead they can jump in at any moment in any project. And so the speed is there. It's just, the leadership doesn't happen by a promotion or a title.
Yep.
And we know that, and everybody talks about it, but many don't take it to the extent of saying, well, if that's not true, then we've got to start developing leadership all the time in every level. And if we do that, then when the call arrives, they're ready.
Yes. There's a quote by John Maxwell, and it's simple. That's why I remember it. Because remember, go back to infantry, right? So people follow people; they don't follow positions.
Yeah,
and it's so true. You could be the best individual worker in the world, but if you're a bad leader, they'll leave. Because why would I work for you? You don't care about me. So kind of going back to that point, someone who maybe gets promoted ahead of time, they don't have those leadership skills, or maybe they believe that they don't have those leadership skills. How do you tease out that imposter syndrome and help them work through that?
Yeah. For me, I really battle with the term imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I think the feeling of being an imposter is the human experience. Like if you're hard driving, and if you're willing to take risks and step out of your comfort zone, if you're willing to try things that you've never done before, you're going to experience what it feels like to feel like an imposter, like you don't belong, like you're not worthy. That's the experience. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's why I really despise that we've attached this word syndrome on the back of it. Because I think it's much more beneficial for us to talk about it in the light of, we're all imposters, man. Hopefully. In fact, I tell people, you don't get to be my client unless you're an imposter in some areas of your life, because that means you're doing something new. You're trying something different. You're stepping into the unknown. You're taking risks. And that's the only way that my work's going to work with you, is if we're actually out there creating something new. And that inherently you're going to feel like a fraud at times. That's okay.
I love that, man. That frame of mind of identifying what an imposter syndrome is, because I still have it, right? Like, I've won some pretty prestigious leadership awards, and when I take over a position or when I interview for another job, like I still get those butterflies in my stomach, that like, am I really good enough for that position? But to that point, that's where I have a sledgehammer mindset. And that's a whole other conversation, but we could get into that. But it's just the unreasonableness is that, hey, little voice inside, shut up. It's time to execute. And you have to build that internal confidence. And it's hard to do. And I think a coach is just beautifully aligned to do that.
Yeah, I say the way we calm the imposter's voice is claim it.
Fire. I love that.
So for me, I get it all the time. I'm with you, man. I experience it all the fucking time because I am pushing. I'm doing things that scare me. So the other day I got to sit down with a team of leaders, 5 people in this organization, and the size of the organization and the difference that they're making in the world and the size of the company is very intimidating to me.
Yeah.
Extremely intimidating to me. And that's how I started the meeting. I said, I'm so grateful to be here. Super nervous.
I bet you built an authentic relationship or that connection almost instantaneous because you were vulnerable.
Absolutely. And I just said, look, I'm in this. I am really good at what I do, and I'm here for you. And that drives me, not my fear. So rest assured, you'll get the best of me. But that doesn't negate the fact that I'm feeling nerves. And I just want to tell you that. And guess what happened? my nerves dissipated.
Yeah.
Now I'm not trying to pretend like I've got it all together. There's no nervousness and blah, 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 which would perpetuate because I'm resisting it. I just claim it. They know where I'm at. I know where I'm at. Now we can go forward.
Wow. I love that, man. So kind of walking through, and we're almost at the end. And I will tell you is that I haven't even got to half of the questions. I might have to have like a part 2. And I always tell people this, but it's true. This is probably my favorite episode so far. But I know you have a lot going on, and you have your own podcast too, the Naked Leadership Podcast, which I'm interested. And I think I know, but where did the name come from?
The idea was that we just wanted to expose the conversations that nobody else was willing to have.
Yes.
When it's the emperor's clothes, right? It's there's so much posturing and there's so much bullshit out there about leadership and what the experience is and all of that sort of stuff. And it's been that for a long time. And we just wanted to say, hey, look, we're naked. It doesn't, I mean, we're exposed, we're vulnerable, we're human, we're nervous, we're whatever that conversation we were just having. And I believe in having those conversations, we open an opportunity for a lot more people to take risks because they'll realize that, oh my gosh, I'm having the same experience all those people are. So why not I go for it too?
Dude, I love the name of that podcast. And just, kind of a quick plug, where can listeners find that? Where is it hosted at?
It's on anywhere you get your podcast, or most so iTunes, Spotify,
cool,
app, or Amazon, those places.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing. And I full disclosure, I probably should have listened to one of your episodes for breaking you on, but I am going to listen to that. And I was really curious of where you got that name from. So that's awesome.
I always give people a starting point because we have 100 and probably at this point we have 160 something episodes. So
inspiring.
I would encourage you to start it with episode 145. It's called How We Do Confrontation. And it's a recording of me bringing up with our two founders. I have our founders of our firm, Dan and Adrian. They co-host with me, and it's me bringing up something to them that I like, a gripe that I have with them, something that was not working for me. And it's real time. They got on thinking we were going to cover another subject.
Wow.
And I just said, I dropped that and said, this is what I want to do. Are you guys in? And they said, we're in. And we go, and it's awkward, and you can hear my nervousness. You can hear their awkwardness. But ultimately I wanted to demonstrate how we could come together even through what wasn't working, what I was frustrated about, what they were surprised about, and that we could really have a meaningful conversation about it. And so that's my favorite episode to point people to.
That's amazing, man. Okay, final part of this show, I call it the killer bees. So be brief, be brilliant, be present, and be gone. So same 4 questions I ask everyone. If you're ready, we'll jump into it.
Let's go.
So what do you believe separates a good leader from an extraordinary leader?
A good leader leads people. An excellent leader leads leaders.
I love that. So second question, what is one resource that you could recommend to our listeners?
A book that changed my life, Leadership and Self-Deception, Getting Out of the Box.
So question 3 is, if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't worry so much.
I love it. And the final one, how can our listeners find you, and then how can they add value to your mission?
Join us on the podcast. I'm also on LinkedIn and active on Instagram. And really, if something here resonates with you, reach out to me. That's the best way to interact with me. Email me, whatever, however, message me, whatever.
Yeah. Chad, thank you so much. I mean, to the time of filming this, it's almost 10 o'clock my time, Central Standard. So thank you for being intentional and discussing something I love.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for the space. You're an incredibly generous host. It's so good.
Yeah. Have a great night, brother.
Yeah, you too.